All right, today we need to talk about your wallet. And I don't mean the one in your pocket. I'm talking about the digital one that is, believe me, coming for every single one of us. Because the whole idea of money as we know it, the cash, the numbers in our bank account, it's all on the edge of the biggest change it's seen in hundreds of years. What's being cooked up right now in the quiet halls of central banks and the data centers of global superpowers is going to completely rewrite our relationship with our money. And when that happens, it's going to change how we think about freedom, privacy, and power itself. And look, this isn't some far-off sci-fi thing. This is happening right now. To really get what's at stake, you have to ask, who's in control? And historically, the answer has always been the same. That quote, it's always felt like this big abstract idea, right? Something for geopolitical chess masters. But today, it's not an abstraction anymore. It's becoming a technical blueprint. The power to control money, and I don't just mean how much of it there is, but to control every single transaction, is moving from being a possibility to being right around the corner. And all of this is happening at a moment when the world feels incredibly unstable. The financial system that's been in place since World War II, the one that's run the global economy for 80 years, it's starting to show some serious cracks. I mean, we're talking about massive government debts that look impossible to pay back, inflation that just keeps eating away at our savings, and a deep-seated distrust in the very institutions that are supposed to be protecting our money. A distrust that, let's be honest, really kicked into gear after the 2008 crash and has never really gone away. For most of the last century, really since the Bretton Woods Agreement way back in 1944, the whole world has basically run on one operating system, the US dollar. This gave the US something a French finance minister once famously called an exorbitant privilege. Basically, the ability to buy anything it wanted from the rest of the world just by printing its own money. But that era, the era of the dollar being king, is now facing maybe its biggest challenge ever. And it's not just one thing, it's a whole bunch of powerful forces all hitting at the same time. The foundation is starting to crack, and whatever rushes in to fill that gap is going to decide the future of your wallet.
Okay, so to really get what a huge deal this is, you first have to understand what the dollar's role actually is. It's the world's main reserve currency. That basically makes it the bedrock for global trade. Oil, the lifeblood of the modern world, is priced in dollars. Big international contracts are written in dollars. So when a country like Brazil sells soybeans to China, they often get paid in, you guessed it, US dollars. This creates this constant built-in demand for American currency, and it allows the US to run huge deficits and have incredible power over the world's financial plumbing. It even helps the average American, keeping interest rates a little lower, making that stuff we buy from overseas a little cheaper. It's a privilege that has shaped the US economy for decades. So take a look at this. This is the world most of us think we live in. It's the picture you see in most news headlines. When you measure a country's economic power using the standard method, GDP all converted into US dollars, America is still number one, no question. This view is comfortable, it's what we're used to, and it fits that old story of American economic dominance. But it's also dangerously misleading. The thing is, just measuring everything in dollars can really skew the picture. It doesn't really account for the simple fact that, say, $10 can buy you a whole lot more in Shanghai than it can in New York City. So to get a real picture of economic power, economists use a much more accurate yardstick called purchasing power parity, or PPP. Think of it like this. It's not about how many dollars a country has, it's about what they can actually do with that money at home. What can they build? What can they produce? What can their people actually buy? It's a measure of real economic muscle, not just a number on a spreadsheet. And when you look at the world through that lens, well, it looks completely different. And boom, this is the first big shocker. If you measure based on what money can actually buy, the real-world production of stuff and services, China actually became the world's largest economy way back in 2016. That's not a prediction. That's a historical fact straight from the International Monetary Fund. For the better part of a decade now, the story of U.S. economic leadership has been running on fumes based on an old way of measuring things, while the real center of economic gravity already shifted. This is why you see China acting with so much more confidence on the world stage, building massive projects around the globe, and becoming the undisputed factory of the world. And this isn't just a blip, it's speeding up. Take a look at the EMF's projections for 2030, using that same, more accurate PPP measurement. The picture gets even crazier. The US is on track to be overtaken by India too, dropping it into third place. Now get this, look at the rest of that list. Only 3 of the top 10, the US, Japan, and Germany, are what we think of as the old guard G7 economies. The rest? They're the so-called emerging nations.
This is a complete rewriting of the economic map. I mean, we haven't seen a shift this big since the Industrial Revolution. So what's behind all this? What's causing this massive shift? Well, it's really a perfect storm. First, like we just saw, the raw economic power is just shifting from west to east. Second, you have analysts from places like the Nomura Research Institute pointing out that trust in the U.S. Federal Reserve is fading because people see it as becoming more political. That's bad news for global confidence in the dollar. Third, you've got these powerful new alliances forming with a specific goal of getting out from under the dollar. And finally, all of this is happening as this technological tsunami, this unstoppable move to digital money, is about to change the whole game. This power vacuum is opening up, and two very different visions are racing to fill it. Okay, so that brings us to the first major vision for what comes next. It's the one being worked on right now by over 130 governments, including the U.S. Federal Reserve and the European Central Bank. And it's a vision of total efficiency and complete government control. And it's all being sold to us with these friendly-sounding words like convenience and innovation. They're called Central Bank Digital Currencies, or CBDCs. So you're probably thinking, wait a minute, my money is already digital, right? I tap my card, I use payment apps, I get paid by direct deposit. But a CBDC is totally different. The money in your bank account right now is technically a liability of a private bank like Chase. With a CBDC, your money isn't with a commercial bank anymore. It's a direct liability of the central bank. It's in a direct account with the government itself. And as some have warned, this tiny technical change could be a Trojan horse for a kind of government surveillance and control we have never seen before. Okay, just look at the difference here. Let's walk through this. Physical cash. It's anonymous, it's private. You buy a coffee with a $5 bill, nobody knows but you and the barista. Simple. A CBDC, by its very nature, would mean every single purchase is logged on a government server. Cash is permissionless. You don't need anyone's approval to use it. A CBDC is permissioned. Your ability to spend could literally be switched on or off. Cash is permanent. A CBDC, well, it can be made programmable. And that is the absolute most important difference of them all. And that word, programmability, that's the absolute game changer. That is the key to a whole new level of control. It means the government, the issuer of the money, could build rules directly into your funds. So what if your money could be turned off if you went to a political rally they didn't like? Or what if your savings could be programmed to expire, to force you to spend them to stimulate the economy? Imagine getting a stimulus check that can only be spent on certain things, and if you don't use it in 30 days, poof, it disappears. This isn't science fiction. This is the core feature that is being built and tested as we speak. Now, this threat to our freedom isn't just some theory. It's so real that it's already sparking huge political fights. In the U.S., you have lawmakers from both parties introducing bills like the Anti-CBDC Surveillance State Act. As one of them put it, a CBDC could become a tool for coercion and control. The whole point of a bill like this is to stop the Federal Reserve from just creating a CBDC for all of us without an explicit act of Congress. So the alarm bells are already ringing at the very highest levels, and not just in America, but in democracies all over the world. Okay, so while all that is happening inside Western countries, this debate over privacy and control, there's another massive force building on the outside that is actively trying to tear down the dollar's global power. It's a movement that has been quietly growing for years, but geopolitics has thrown gasoline on the fire, and now it's out in the open. It's called de-dollarization, and it's a direct challenge to American influence. And the biggest engine behind this movement? It's that group of countries we call BRICS. Originally, that was Brazil, Russia, India, China, and South Africa. But they just got a lot bigger, inviting huge energy producers like Saudi Arabia, the UAE, and Iran to join them. You're now talking about a group that represents almost half the people on the planet and has a bigger slice of the world economy than the G7. And critically, they control a huge chunk of the world's oil. And they're not just talking. They are actively building new systems, new ways to make payments, to create a whole separate financial world that the U.S. can't touch. So, how does this actually play out in the real world? It often starts when the U.S. uses the dollar as a weapon. For example, when Russia was hit with massive sanctions, it was cut off from SWIFT. That's the network that banks use to send money around the world, the plumbing of the dollar system. So overnight, doing business in dollars became almost impossible for them. What happened? Russia had no choice. It started selling its oil to India and China and getting paid directly in Chinese yuan and other currencies. And here's the kicker. Every other country is watching this happen. And any nation that's worried they might be next on the sanctions list is now actively looking for these non-dollar escape routes, which just makes the alternative stronger and stronger. And this is where it all comes together.
This is where those two big stories we've been talking about, CBDCs and de-dollarization, smash right into each other. China's CBDC, the digital yuan, is the most advanced of any major country. And it wasn't just built for use inside China. It was specifically designed to make international payments super fast, super cheap, and to do it completely outside the dollar system. Beijing is trying to make its digital currency the technology that powers this new de-dollarized world, an alternative that completely bypasses American banks and American sanctions. Make no mistake, this is as much a tool of geopolitics as it is a new form of money. So, where does all this leave us? What does it actually mean for you and your money? We have these two giant forces, the internal push for control with CBDCs and the external attack on the dollar from other powers. And they're colliding. And they are forcing all of us, every single person who uses money, to a huge digital crossroads. And really, it boils down to two very different paths forward. On the one hand, you have path one. That's a future where the West fights back against de-dollarization by launching its own CBDCs to compete with China. The dollar might survive in that world, but it would be a totally different animal, a programmable tool for government surveillance and control. On the other hand, you have path two. That's a future where the West says no to CBDCs because of privacy concerns, but the de-dollarization trend just keeps going. The dollar's reign as king ends. And that could lead to a messier, more chaotic world with different currencies and economic blocs fighting for power. Neither option is simple, and both have huge consequences for our freedom and our economic future. Look, one thing is for sure. The move to digital money is happening. It's inevitable. It's like trying to stop the shift from horses to cars. It's just not going to happen. It promises to be faster, more efficient, cheaper. So the real fight, the one that really, truly matters, isn't about if we go digital. It's about how. What kind of digital money are we going to build? Is it going to be a system built on privacy and individual freedom? Or is it going to be a system designed from the very beginning for surveillance, for programmability, and for centralized government control? And in the end, it all boils down to one simple, powerful question. This switch, from money being a physical thing to just being digital bits of information, is the biggest change to money in centuries. And as we stand right on the edge of this new world, we all have to think about what's really at stake. Because in a world where money is programmable, the person or the group that writes the rules, the one that holds the code, will have the power to control not just the world economy, but the very choices you get to make every single day of your life.